For many areas in eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England, and that includes New Jersey, New York City, Long Island, the Hudson Valley, and Connecticut, by the way. This is the 24th consecutive day without a drop of rain. And the streak goes on and on and on. And that's why we're here, because we're going to tell you about that. Also, slight change in the pattern going forward because now we've got cool air masses that are moving in. But there's still hardly any moisture around for them to work with. So, on that note, let's get started tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And if you'd like to support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, you can do it very simply by shopping on Amazon using the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast referral link that is on the pinned to the top of the chat board, or it's on the descriptor to this podcast. You just search and shop, you get your stuff. Amazon throws us a little bit of coin for sending you there. Doesn't cost you a dime out of your own pocket. And everybody walks away happy. We appreciate your support here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. So, Mr. Rayo,
Now,
I
how is
look.
that possible?
How
How is
is
it
what?
possible? I guess when you have a trace of precipitation,
Yeah.
that that doesn't count as a day with precipitation, does it?
Well, it's not measurable precipitation.
Okay,
I
so
mean, for all intents and purposes, it's 24 days in a row. It's the last day of September. September had a 15-day streak. I went back and looked at some stats today that I figured because everybody's trying to figure out if there's some, you know, grand meaning to all of this over the longer term. And I came up with some very interesting results. But 15 days in September in a row uh, where we didn't have any rain. Then we had rain for a bunch of days. It did not rain on the last day of the month of September. And I used, look, this is one specific point. I used New York City Central Park as a specific point. It's probably the same for just about everybody. There might be the odd exception here and there where somebody got spat on with a shower. But the last day of September, and today is the 23rd day of October. So we are now at the 24 consecutive days without rain. And I mean, it's going to go unless we get a shower from that front tonight, which I think is for 99% of the folks, you're not going to see anything. And we got another front that's coming through um, Friday night, early Saturday morning, or whenever that passes by. Um, that it's going to go at least another 9 or 10 days with no rainfall.
pretty amazing, really amazing. And yeah, I see that the National Weather Service guys had put in the chance for parts of the tri-state area tonight, late tonight after midnight, and early tomorrow, a slight chance of a sprinkle. But if we get a sprinkle, that's what? That still gives us a trace, which wouldn't count. So, and as far as beyond that, you mentioned the front that's coming through probably around daybreak on Saturday. That doesn't look like it's going to carry very much of any moisture with it. So you're right. It may very well be that we'll go right on through the end of the month without any kind of significant precipitation here, Joe. And believe it or not, while it does cool off a bit in the next 24 to 36 hours, um, and we'll get even cooler behind the front on Saturday, it's going to jump back probably to or above 70 by the middle part of next week. So
Oh
these
yeah,
these cool downs are going to be relatively brief or relatively transitory in the sense that it'll get cool for a short while, but it's going to warm up again, and it will do so probably sometime in the middle of next week.
yeah. There'll be a brief pop in temperatures. Saturday maybe gets it up above 70 in some places before the second front goes by. And yeah, by the middle of next week, I think, Tuesday will start to bounce a little higher, but Wednesday and Thursday, which is Halloween, and Friday of next week look to potentially be very warm days. Uh, gonna just interrupt this train of thought and come back to it in a second, I just want to say hi to everybody on the chat board. And those of you who are watching in the background or watching for the first time, welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. We are usually here Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. And our normal off days are Friday and Saturday, unless there's a storm around, and then we always do a little rearranging and we let you know about it. But given the fact that we've basically now done four shows in a row where we've really said the same thing over and over again, and nothing's going to change much of consequence. There are no big storms going around on anywhere in the country. There are no hurricanes or tropical storms that are going to be impacting the U.S. anytime soon. So Joe and I will be off Thursday, tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and we'll be back on Monday. And next week is going to also be an interrupted schedule because I have a wedding at the end of the week. So I'll let you know about that when we come back on Monday. So anyway, I went I got my little piece of paper and my pen, and I went and figured out the new Weather Service Climo site, and I got to where I needed to go because a number of people, and I've seen the questions get kind of popping up about whether there's any grand meaning to the fact that we've had no rain except virtually uh, no rain in the last 2 months, except for there was an inch and a half in New York City in September. So what I did was I went back and looked and I was very specific here. I looked for uh, September and October combinations where both months had less than an inch of rain. Okay, and the there was something special about September of and October of
It's
1892.
it sounds for instance that you've done already the research that Tom Contino on the chat board says this gives Rayo 4 days to do a study on this drought with snowfall, but it looks like you've already done my
Yeah.
homework, Joe.
Okay, so I did. So here's what I did. So I went back and looked at all the Octobers where rainfall amounts were less than an inch. All right. And there were 11 of them. Uh, there was only one September October combination where both months finished with less than an inch of rainfall. So it was less than an inch in September, less than an inch in October. That was back in 1892. Okay. So from that data set of one, I then looked at the winter of 1892, 1893, and that turned out to be a very snowy winter, although I don't see where wrote the snow amount down. I think it was like 50 inches for the winter. But it's the only time that happened. Okay, so you can't, if that's it, you have a data set of one. Now, now the Octobers, okay, the Octobers where we've had less than an inch of rain, that happened 11 times. 1892, 49.7 was the 92-93, 1892-93 winter. So 1892, 1897, 1909, 1918, 1921, 1946, 1952, 1963, 2000, 2001, and 2013. Okay. So in those Octobers, of those, the 11 winters that followed, five of those winters were above normal. The most was 2013, winter of 2013, 2014, 50.3 inches in New York. And I think that winter I had like 78 inches on Long Island, some preposterous amount. Either that or I think maybe it was 82. I forget. Um, so those were the two big ones. In 1892, 49.7. So of those 11 winters, you had five of them that were above normal, one of them that was like really close to normal, just like an inch below normal, and the other five were below normal, including the winter of 1918, 3.8, and 2001, 3.5. So you have a data set of 11 That basically splits down the middle at 50-50. So that doesn't help you. And when you look at then I decided, okay, why don't I look at November? Because I would think maybe November would be a bit more important. So I looked at November and I looked at the Novembers where we had less than an inch of rain for the month. 1901, 1917, 1931, 1933, 1949, 1974, 1976. So that was a total of 7 years. So the 7 winters that followed, one, two of them were above normal. 1917 was 34.5, and the 17-18 winter was very cold, especially in late December and January, early January. 34.5 in 17-18. 1933, 34 was 52 inches. 1976 was 24 and a half. So, I mean, that was kind of, a couple of inches below normal, not a lot. The other four were well below normal. Uh, 9.1 inches in 1901, 11.6 in 1931, 13.8 in 1949, and 13.1 in 1974. So the bottom line through all of this is this tells us absolutely nothing as a forecast tool as to what the winter's going to be like. So there you have it. I saved you some work.
It's a coin toss.
I mean, pretty much. And you think about it, I mean, then you have to skew for the fact that more winters are below normal than above normal. You can only be 30 inches below normal, but you can be infinitely above normal. So the big years tend to skew out this, you know, I'd say a little more than 6 out of 10 winters are below normal when you look at it over the long haul, anyhow. So,
I think I came up with something about the summer precipitation. I think when we had an unusually wet summer, um, let's say a, let's say more than 60 inches of precipitation at Central Park, and this is just for Central Park and for New York City. But when we had that, there was like 7 out of 10 winters that came after such a wet summer were above normal. So, but this was not a wetter than normal summer.
right. Did you look
You
at the
know,
drier than normal summers?
yes, it was by about 80. We had about 18% less precip. Now, not for meteorological summer. I also threw in September, but it was below normal in June, near normal in July, well above normal in August, and September another dry month. And need I tell you what October's been like? So
Right. And the thing about this is I used an inch. I don't know what the number would have been if I said an inch and a half. I don't know what the number. You could play with this in terms of what your criteria is going to be, and get a bigger data set. Maybe I would have gotten a bigger data set if I went, say, an inch and a half, or if I went 2 inches, which is still going to be below average. So I just picked the arbitrary point of 1 inch because, getting less than an inch for an entire month is a standout as it is. So this is, uh, you know, there's your numbers. They really don't mean anything. So I accomplished my job to make things more confusing, and more questionable, than they already are. So there you go. Uh, shall we go through this?
I guess we should.
All right. Well, we can start with the watches and warnings, and I'll put the map up, and we could see that there aren't any, unless you want to count the red flag warnings that are up for southern New Jersey, the southern half of New Jersey, and the freeze warnings that are up along the West Coast. But as far as seriously adverse weather conditions are concerned, like flash flood watches and winter storm watches and all that sort of thing, nothing. It's bare from coast to coast, even Alaska, except right along the northern coast of Alaska. What do they got up there? See some purple. What is that? Uh, Oh, no, the brown area is what? I'm clicking on here. It's a high surf advisory.
A what advisory?
Just I clicked on Alaska near the North Slope, like near
Right.
Barrow, okay? And they have a high surf advisory in effect.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
and it, now I don't know how to pronounce this. Nuiqsut. Nuiqsut Airport. The airport symbol is PAQT. Right now, it's 27 degrees, visibility 5 miles, and light snow. They have a high surf advisory for anyone that So if you were thinking about surfing the North Slope of Alaska in the Arctic Ocean, you might want to think about going there because they have a high surf advisory. Oh God, the world we live in.
Well,
Anyhow.
I would suppose that is it's useful. Maybe it's also if you live literally right at the north coast, like people on South Shore of Long Island who have homes on stilts. Maybe somebody out there in northern Alaska has a problem when the waters get a little bit too high.
No, 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 no. I understand. I understand. Um, well, they probably don't have swimmers to worry about going in the 40-degree ocean up there or whatever the water temperatures are. Um, so anyhow,
Unless they're members of the Polar Bear Club.
true. And they can swim there year round. U.S. satellite tonight. You can see the cold front stands out because there's actually a stick of clouds. I mean, that's how dry it's been because we've been really struggling just to find cloud cover. But there's a stick of clouds running down the St. Lawrence River Valley, and it really thins out in central Pennsylvania and down into West Virginia. To the east, we've got this ocean storm that's developing north of Bermuda now, this absorbed Oscar, and has been kind of inching its way to the northeast. And since it's starting to get out of the way, that's allowing this weather front to come on through. Otherwise, it's just been stuck there. And we also have clouds that have come in off the Pacific Ocean through Oregon and streaming up into Montana, where we actually do have some rain going on and probably some mountain snows too. In eastern Oregon and into Idaho and southwestern and even to south central Montana, mostly light stuff though. And in the east, we do actually have some showers at the you know, near from Binghamton north and northeast up into northeastern New York. There's some showers and even a couple of heavier downpours in there east of Syracuse. But south of there, nothing. There's a stick of showers in western Pennsylvania down into southeastern Ohio. Most of those are on the light side. There's actually a thunderstorm going on uh, near Buffalo and Niagara because they got the special marine warning up for the eastern shore of Lake Erie, and also looks like a thunderstorm that's scrolling along western New York, right along the coast of Lake Ontario there. And you've got rain up into the St. Lawrence Valley, but the rest of the country's radar is silent. No severe weather forecast tonight. We do have a marginal risk for severe weather tomorrow in Iowa, northern Missouri, southeast Nebraska, northeast Kansas, and a small portion of western Illinois. That does not come with a tornado risk. And then for Friday into Saturday, once again, a little area generals, thunderstorms, western Ohio down into northern Arkansas. Probably going to be widely scattered stuff, and no severe weather being indicated there. And once again, as we look at the 7-day rainfall amounts from Maine down to Florida, it's pretty much nothing. A couple of patches of a couple of hundredths on the North Carolina South Carolina state line. Also back in western and upstate New York, back into Ohio and Kentucky. Half to three quarters in the upper Mississippi Valley to the western lakes. And some heavier precip in the Pacific Northwest, particularly on the coast where we have several inches or more being indicated from northwesternmost California northward up through western Washington state. And that is it. I'm going to come back to the tropics in a minute, but um, just looking ahead here, Joe, cold front goes by, no moisture. High builds in, cold shot. Next front comes through Saturday, no moisture, nothing. Uh, a cool shot. The cool shot for Sunday and Monday into early Tuesday of next week looks like it's going to be cooler than the one that's coming tomorrow and Friday. And then we wait for that high to go out and drop southeast of Cape Cod. Then the winds turn westerly. We start to warm up again with a screaming west to southwest wind. Who knows? You know, Joe, it's not impossible. We could see, make a run. Maybe some warm spots make another run for 80 degrees late next week. And there's some kind of front scheduled for next Thursday night, which would be Halloween night, that has a dying area of showers with that. That would be the only chance that we really have to squeeze in measurable precip. It might come on the very last day it might come on Halloween at night, if that moisture is even real, before we get another high building in. And after that, I mean, I'm going out 16 days here, and that takes us to November 7th. That's the first day where there's something on this particular model run where there's rain. So it's conceivable that we could go the first 10 days of November without seeing measurable rainfall.
I don't know. That kind of is pushing the envelope. Something I know is bound. In fact, yeah, uh, I would think that something is going to come our way, probably once we get out of October and into November. Although I can't really say when.
Well, this is probably one of the rare times that we get to feel like what weather forecasters feel like in San Diego. Because, I mean, I know all the weather enthusiasts look at this and say this is boring. And boring is kind of not maybe not the right word for a forecaster to use. Yeah, it's boring, but it's not boring because we stand here and are cheering that we want like a big storm with death and destruction and all the rest of it. That's not it at all. It's just not challenging. There's nothing challenging really about forecasting sunny today, high in the mid 60s, clear tonight, low in the low 40s. I mean, and doing it night after night after night. So this is definitely, we're getting the San Diego experience here where the sun shines 325 days a year.
It really does feel like this is how it is in San Diego most of the time, and it obviously is not going to continue this way into the winter. So he says.
Yeah,
I know the snow weenies don't want it to be that way, but you know, buck up. Things are going to change.
yeah, I'm just looking at the long range. It's so amazing how the model is persistent with this, ridge that's in the eastern part of the United States. I mean, it flattens at times and then it bulges up at other times, but it's a persistent ridge position for the next 2 weeks. Troughs, Newfoundland and out in the Atlantic, deep troughs from Alaska down to the southwest that eventually get kicked eastward. And then I think the only thing really of consequence to all of this, with this uh, this big upper high that's going to be building next week off the southeast coast, is that it does continue to create, lower than normal pressures in the Caribbean. We have all the models really trying to do something because you got this gyre that's over Central America and another disturbance. Again, today's run spitting out something in the Central Caribbean around the middle part of next week, and then just basically spinning it in the Caribbean for about 5 or 6 days before it, heads up toward Cuba as a major hurricane. I don't even know if this. Who knows how real this is? I tend to think that something is probably going to come out of the Caribbean in the next 2 weeks. Whether that ultimately becomes something that is going to be a problem for the United U.S., that is so far down the thought process that it's not even worth mentioning. And of course, Joe, last night, uh, both GFS runs, but the 0Z a little bit more than the 6Z, had another hurricane going into the Florida Big Bend and then running up the eastern seaboard east of the Appalachians, right around Election Day. And of course, the social media forecasters put up the map, the GFS and then the disclaimer that says, "Oh, but this is not a forecast."
Yeah.
And Twitter was on fire from all the weather nuts that are on there that put that up. So uh, we'll probably have at least one more named tropical system before this is all said and done, before the whole hurricane season is finished. And I think I think there's a fair chance that we could see something developing in the Caribbean beginning later next week. Until then, it's a snooze
Well,
fest.
I have some statistics here that may be of interest concerning election day weather here in the New York metropolitan area. It says here, since we are voting for the president this year, here are the weather extremes that have occurred in New York City now for past presidential election years. The warmest election day, warmest election presidential election year was 75 degrees on November 3rd, 1936, when everybody voted for FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. The coldest was 30 degrees at Central Park on November 8th, 1960. That was for JFK. That was John F. Kennedy's uh, year being elected, election day 1960, the coldest election day in New York.
So it was
The
the coldest
wettest,
election for Kennedy's election. It was the coldest election day in New York. For Kennedy's inauguration, they had one of the biggest snowstorms that they've ever had in Washington D.C.
right.
Okay.
And what are you making the allusion to that
No, I'm
Kennedy?
not making an illusion. I just wanted to just make that point there. He had
Okay.
cold weather in New York on election day. He had a snowstorm on inauguration day.
The wettest election day here in New York City, 2.18 inches of rain on November 3rd, 1992. That was for President Clinton,
Right.
1992. Now, here's the most interesting thing of all. You're thinking about snow. I mentioned the other night that there was a Mary Tyler Moore episode where there was a big blizzard on election night, and all the telephone lines went down and teletype lines, and so they couldn't tell you who won or lost the election. But in New York, snow has never fallen on a presidential election day, although in 2012, is it 2012? My goodness, the printing on this thing is so small. Yeah, 2012. In 2012, it snowed 4.3 inches of snow the following day, the day after
Day after?
election day. The day after.
Okay.
2012, of course, was the year of Hurricane Sandy,
Right.
Superstorm Sandy.
Right, and that was the icing on the cake. The only thing that didn't happen after Hurricane Sandy was a locust invasion.
That's right. So Sandy was on October 29th,
Right.
and
That was the upper low that was responsible for bringing Sandy on shore. Hung around for the better part of another week, and then came out, and that's what we got the snow from.
right, and there you go.
And there you have it.
That's the statistical, and it looks like right now that maybe, just maybe, we might challenge the Franklin Roosevelt all-time high temperature for election day. Although I think by then, by February 5th, we may actually, it may be a mild day, but I don't know if it's going to get all the way up to 75. So
Well, all right. Do you have Briller Jeopardy? Let's run through it real quick, please.
yes, I do have Thriller Jeopardy, and I will get through it so that we can start our vacation as quickly as possible here.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So here we go. This is for blah, 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 blah. Here we are. Um, oh, international Briller Jeopardy tonight. On this Briller Jeopardy, average lows in October, average lows in the month of October in these foreign cities, Joe.
Oh
And
God,
I know it. And I
I
know that on at least two of these cities that I'm going to run down, you're going to say, how the heck would I run? Athens, average low temperature
oh,
in
I
Athens.
don't know. In Athens, I have no clue. Oh God. I'm gonna guess it's a warm number, so I'll say 64.
Pretty good. A little too warm, but pretty good. Christopedia says 62, Anthony 63, but Rich Rothmansky got it. How do you do it every
Oh,
time
that psycho Rich
at
Rothmansky, for
60?
God's sake, 60.
60. All
He's
right.
so good.
Chuck Cardillis at 661. That's a little too warm. How about London?
London. Average low in London. Well, uh, I, God, I don't know. 51.
51 is a good guess. A little too warm, but it was a good guess.
I was going to go in the 40s, but then I sort of backed off. Patrick Darcy said 47,
Well, that's snake country.
and
You're very close.
Christopher Bear said 48.
48 is correct. That's it.
Very good, Christopher
Congratulations,
Bear.
Christopher. I'm going to ring the bell for Christopher. There you go. All right. How about Paris?
Paris. Well, London is
Joe,
50.
I'll tell you what. If you get this right on the nose, I will award you with a Jacques Marcel dress.
By the way, did you know that one of the in one of the scenes there where they have the a model walking wearing a Jacques Marcel dress is Georgia Holt. Do you know who Georgia Holt's daughter is?
No.
Cher.
Really?
You know, Cher's mother.
How do you like that?
Yeah, that's very cool. Oh, you know what? I'll say, well, Paris is inland, but they're also further south. What was London?
48.
I'm going to just give it a round number. I'll say 50.
You should have gone one number up, Joe. Patrick Darcy did. He gets it with 49. But no, Patrick Darcy, you don't win the Jacques Marcel dress.
No.
Only a brother Joe.
Well, 50 was a good guess.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
All your guesses so far have been pretty close. How about Rome?
Rome. Rome is warmish time. It's kind of warmish there. So I'm going to go higher than this. What was Paris?
49.
29. Um, I'll say 56.
That's a little too warm. Not a bad guess, but it's a little too warm.
Okay.
Pat BFD said 64, and that's even warmer.
Yeah, Anthony and Patrick Darcy said 52. And James
That's
Davidson 52, Vincent Croce 54, Chuck
but Chuck
Cardillo
Cardillo got it with 53,
53.
and Louis
Yeah,
Origio also 53.
53.
No, Moscow.
Oh, good God. Moscow. So I figure they're going to be a lower number. So I'll say, just the question is if it's get to, I'll say 41.
A little too warm, Joe.
A little too warm.
Rich
Uh,
Rosmansky came very close with 34, but
Patrick Darcy's at 35.
that's even closer. In fact, that's snake
Okay,
country.
so James Davidson is at 37, so I'm just looking for a 36, correct?
And 30,
Which Chuck Cardillo just hit with 36.
36. Here's the bonus. Here's the bonus. It's the land of how many of you out there are wrestling
Tell me
fans?
it's some city in Kurdistan.
If any of you out there are wrestling fans, you will immediately know what city this is. It's the city that Tony Gurria came from. Tony Gurria, the WWF Rookie of the Year in 1973. Anybody out there who I'm what place I'm alluding to?
Oh God,
Anybody who's
Sheboygan,
a wrestling fan? Well, Vincent Croce, you're right.
Wausau, Wisconsin.
Auckland. I could see who the wrestling fans are.
Oh, so
New
now we got to do the average low in Auckland, New Zealand.
Auckland, New Zealand, the average October low temperature.
Well, it's spring there. Um, oh God, the average low. So
That's
it's October, which would be the equivalent of April. I'll say I'll say I'll say 45.
too cold,
Too cold? Yeah.
too cold. I'm looking to
So
see if anybody got it. Oh, and Daniel, you came very close with a 52,
Croce's got 53.
and Vincent Croce got it.
Nice.
53 degrees in Auckland, New Zealand. But it's nice to know by just saying that. It's nice to know who the wrestling fans, either current or former fans, are. Vincent Croce, Louis Orizio, Christopher Bear, Tom Contino. They all pretty much knew that Tony Garea was from New Zealand, Auckland, New Zealand. So
All right.
there you
I remember the name. I never would have remembered that he was from Auckland, New Zealand.
yeah.
All right. On that note, okay, so I said it at the beginning and I'll say it again. So we will not be here for the next 4 days, which means we will not be back until Monday. And next week there will also be some schedule adjustments. I can tell you for sure there'll be no show next Wednesday. Okay. And certainly no show next Friday or Saturday. So it's just a question of whether I'll be able to do one next Thursday, which is possible. Um, so
And this is the
anyhow,
third time, and this is going to be the third time for you
the
walking down
third and final time.
the aisle.
Okay. The third and final time. And then they can get to work on more grandchildren for me.
Yeah.
So there you. Well, they've been together for almost they've been together living together now for how many years? Oh, I don't know, 6 years, 7 years. So yeah, no, we're Italian, Tom. We don't do the D word. Okay, so well, we die. We do die. I mean, that's the only way out.
Yes.
All right, folks. Have a great Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We'll see you next Monday. Bye bye.
Buy bonds.